Sometimes the grace of heaven comes down and blesses you with the gift. And for a reader, that's a new favorite book. My story of finding that book, I was in this used bookstore I was like going to. It's called Chuckle's Favorite Things, and for a few times I would see the same book. It caught my eye. I'd pick it up. I'd say maybe, but I was already getting other books. Like books really here are cheap, two, three, 4 books. But then the third, fourth time I went, I was really thinking like, okay, like it's still catching my attention. So the owner there, he's a great lover of literature. He's a wise old man, like he's like 80 years old. So I asked him like, hey, have you read this book? Like, should I give it a chance? I haven't read this author, and he told me, no, this is a great author right here, great writer, but not everyone likes him. You know, you just got to give it a try. I don't remember if I read it, but you just got to see for yourself. I was like, oh, you know what? Fuck it, we ball. Let's do it, right? So I picked up the book, and normally, when I'm buying books, I'm always in the middle of something. Okay, that's usually a to be read later. Maybe next in line. But this time I made a special occasion. I told myself, whatever I'm gonna get here, I'm reading it. I'm gonna go to the cafe. We're opening this up and starting. And immediately, guys, I was hooked. The in 3 pages, I was convinced. I was hooked. I fell in love. I'm telling you, I fell in love. And that book right here is The Human Stain by Philip Roth. Okay. Now, something that, as one does when you discover something you love, you go online, you want to see what others think, and that on YouTube, there's barely anything about Philip Roth. There is a lot. Okay, I'll correct myself. There is content out there, but it's all from 10 plus years ago. There's barely anything recent, and I'm always on Reddit, on Substack, r/literature, r/books, and I would never see Philip Roth mentioned. I would see plenty of other, okay, of the great 20th century, late 20th century American writers on there, but Philip Roth only every now and then. So that led me to speculate, why is it that he's not getting the recognition he deserves? Well, if you know anything about the publishing landscape, okay, let's speculate here, okay? The first cardinal sin is being a white man, okay? You can get away with being a man if you are, I don't know, Nigerian, Muslim, Ukrainian, Hungarian, the guy who just won the Nobel Prize. But if you're an old white man, that's, American, consensual to, not the standard safe, political correct opinions, that's a cardinal sin there, okay? So not only is this a white man, I already ruined the buildup. He's an old white man, okay? And the old white men, they must burn. That is the Western canon. That's a myth now, okay? I don't know if you've heard, but they're trying to abolish the Western canon. They're already doing it. In universities, they're not caring. The Western canon, it's problematic because it's the white man's view of history, etc., etc. So not only is he an old white man, he's an old white Jew. That's right, he's Jewish. Wow. Especially today. Oh no, okay. I've probably already lost half the people that I've baited into watching this, okay? So he's an old white Jew, and not only is he an old white Jew, he writes about sex. He really likes to write about sex. And I've noticed this trend of a lot of readers today, particularly, the woman out there, who just really can't stand that, because the great American writers of the 20th century, they love to write about those experiences, and it's just seen as misogynistic, disgusting. They don't want to hear. And there is some valid. It's not like it's not open to criticism, but a lot of it's honestly a double standard. You can write what's trending right now. The Morning Glory milking farm. I don't know if you guys heard of this. I'll put a picture up there. That's okay because that's written by a woman. That's it's bestiality, smut, and it's disgusting. But no, it's all, oh, this is progressive. This is deep. This is art. Okay, but men writing about sex, no, that doesn't fly. That's disgusting. Old. That's a self insert. That's a what is that? Power fantasy. All of these things. The male power fantasy. Yeah, that's why I speculate he's been buried. Despite what I want to share today, I don't want to give any more attention to the haters. Is he's still his work is extremely relevant today. Extremely. He's an American legend. He wrote. We talk about the great American novels. Okay, all the time. We as in I don't know people who love literature. Okay, and Americans. Okay, and he wrote he wrote three books and he called it his like American trilogy, unrelated. And the Human Stain is book three in that. And you don't have to read it in order. That's why I looked it up beforehand. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna miss anything. You can read two first, three first, or the first one, American Pastoral. That's his most famous book. I think that defines his legacy. Even after his death, he passed away, and I believe 2018. So his work still matters a lot. Like you know, let's just dig into why did this book touch me so much? Immediately in those first three pages, it opens up in the summer of '98. This is before my time a little bit. I was born in 2000. This is when Bill Clinton was going under. He was under impeachment for what was going on in the White House with the sucky, that stuff, and he's relating that to this affair that the main character, one of the main characters in this novel, is going under. So one of the lines in the first three pages, he talks about how he's relating this to. This is the quote here. All of them in a calculated frenzy with what Hawthorne, who in the 1860s lived not many miles from my door, identified in the incipient country of long ago as the persecuting spirit. Okay? And it really got me thinking that, like, already this guy was blowing my mind. The persecuting spirit. This is back to the Salem witch trials. And so many synapses were connecting in my brain. A lot of people nowadays, the people on the right, when they talk about cancel culture, that all of this, the persecuting spirit is seen as something that's purely on the left. Okay, liberals just like canceling people for not, adhering to their standards of morality and living. But this is just an American thing. This isn't something unique to the left. In the 90s with Doom, and then 2000s with Harry Potter, we had the Bible Belt Christians demonizing that stuff. And so on and so forth. And then with the Bill Clinton thing, and I'm not doing it justice, but essentially, like, it was a mania going on in the country of that's just all everyone cared about. People thought straight up, like, part of the persecuting spirit is that you feel righteous, so self-righteous about yourself because you're shitting on how other people live, and you're like, I am better than that. That's how it goes. And this book, it's not just about cancel culture, because what I don't want people to think is that this book is as shallow as what you're going to hear at a podcast, or even just some modern essay about cancel culture. No, this is a book. It's about identity. It's about race. It's about culture. And even further than just identity, because then, again, shallow word. It's what it means to be a human being, the human condition, okay? What it is to have a conception of yourself, and how that conception will relate to your culture, okay? How it will relate to your race, and how all of this goes into your identity, and how you can never really be free from it, because really just none of that's like race, none of that doesn't necessarily define who you are, but it's the external mixing with the internal. Like I myself, I was born in Colombia, grew up in the U.S., but my identity, I don't think of myself like, okay, I'm a Colombian American and therefore this and that. Like, no, I'm just in my internal, honestly, like in my mind, it's just like non-binary Jungian space. Like, but I do. There's the external, the identity, and the way other people view you, and this novel will go into like how when there's a story about you, okay, uh, the accusation becomes the truth that people accept because it doesn't matter how everything that's been said in the contrary, for it to be spoken is for it to just, it's there, boom, it's the reality. Like people will now start to just fit the puzzle pieces to follow this narrative, and what's we can never really truly know anybody. Let's say like one of your best friends, okay, you think you know him, then it comes out he beat his wife. Your best friend beat his wife. You had no idea. Now everything, you're starting to rethink everything you know about this man, okay? But the reality is we all have secrets, okay? So, and then do these secrets, when they're unveiled, do they actually truly change what you knew in the past? It might reframe it, but it also doesn't. And okay, I'm venturing into territory, into head ass territory, and I gotta pull myself back because I'm not confident about fully digging into that. But what this novel manages to do so well is that it's a page turner, it's literary, and it's profound at every step of the way. Like every single page, there's some banger, profound statement that just makes you think about yourself, and put language to your experiences and elevate them. Okay, that's what a truly great writer can do. Now, something I wrote this down on a napkin. I'll have to show it in later. I wrote, Tolstoy makes you feel like this is what God sees. Like this is God narrating the story. But I feel like Philip Roth sees me in his writing. And I don't know, you can make whatever conclusions you want about that. I really do not care. This novel it's one of my favorite novels now. It just is. And just to do the test. Okay. We're on page, I don't know if anyone can see that. I'm going to edit this later and we're going to see a profound statement in here. A tattoo certainly easy enough to hide. But when he remembered how he got it, it was the mark evocative not only of the turbulence of the worst night of his life, but of all that underlay the turbulence. It was a sign of the whole of his history, of the indivisibility, of the heroism, and of disgrace. Embedded in that blue tattoo was a true and total image of himself. The ineradicable biography was there, as was the prototype of the ineradicable. A tattoo being the very emblem of what cannot ever be removed. The enormous prototype was also there. The enormous enterprise was also there. The outside forces were there. The whole chain of the unforeseen, all the dangers of exposure and all the dangers of concealment, even the senselessness of life was there in that stupid little blue tattoo. What a he writes sentences so perfectly. And already that's just like boom, And I love this novel, but the bigger goal besides the human stain is to lift up Philip Roth, because here on this channel, Endless Satori, I just celebrate greatness. I don't care what your identity is. And honestly, to a questionable degree, I don't really care what you've done in your personal life. I celebrate the great art that transforms our souls. Okay, so I'm gonna celebrate Philip Roth. I'm gonna lift him up, and other great writers out there, Yukio Mishima, Toni Morrison. Great anime, I gotta talk about Danny Den. Gotta make a great Danny Den video. But anyways, if you want to hear celebrations, fun celebrations, because talking about literature is supposed to be fun, guys. It's not serious. It's not so serious. And subscribe, like the video, join me, because we're in for a great ride, okay? The great ride of life. So, obviously, I've only read this one book of Philip Roth. So, I'm going to bring in, you know, this great writer I met on Substack who he reached out to me, asked me to collab, and he is well read in Philip Roth. So, I'm going to bring on the great Colin Ellis Kuming.
Hello. First off, I want to say thank you to Daniel Zambrano. I believe I'm saying your name correctly. If I'm not, I do apologize. Um, just here to give a few thoughts of my own about Philip Roth and why he matters right now in literature. Um, Even though he's been gone for quite a few years, I think 6 or 7. But I still see his books everywhere, even in Barnes and Noble, so that's a plus. But anyway, the reason that Philip Roth is so meaningful to me right now, and was when I was in my 20s, a very frustrated young man, is that he speaks directly to men. And I know that there are other authors out there that do that, that do it well, but he does it through the lens of fiction, and you know really gets at the heart of the struggles that he went through, so much so that it feels as though he's just directly writing about himself most of the time, regardless of which era you're in, whether you're reading Portnoy's Complaint, near the beginning of um, his run, or if you're reading one of the Zuckerman Unbound uh, novels in the 80s, or if you're reading something from the 90s onward, which is his late period, and really his golden period was the 90s. That's when he wrote some of his most powerful things. And he really learned to infuse a lot of sincerity with his irony at that point in ways that I haven't come across in very much fiction. I have, but just not very often. And to me, that's why he's so important, is that he really is so incisive with his messaging and so articulate in the way that he speaks to the reader. You'll see this in any one of his books. But if you read something like Sabbath's Theater, American Pastoral, um, or my mind is blanking all of a sudden, Portnoy's Complaint, of course. Uh, but yes, definitely Sabbath Theater, American Pastoral, and The Human Stain. Those are the ones that you really want to focus on. And with that being said, I want to end really quickly with a quote. I am going a little over my time, but this is the quote that made me really want to become a writer. Is when I read American Pastoral on a cruise ship. So when I was a musician many, many moons ago. Okay, so here's the quote. You fight your superficiality, your shallowness, so as to try to come at people without unreal expectations, without an overload of bias or hope or arrogance, as untank-like as you can be, sans cannon and machine guns and steel plating half a foot thick. You come at them unmenacingly on your own 10 toes instead of tearing up the turf with your caterpillar treads, taking them on with an open mind, as equals, man to man, as we used to say, and yet you never fail to get them wrong. You might as well have the brain of a tank. You get them wrong before you meet them while you're anticipating meeting them. You get them wrong while you're with them. And then you go home to tell somebody else about meeting and you get them all wrong again. Since the same generally goes for them with you, the whole thing is really a dazzling illusion, empty of all perception, an astonishing farce of misperception. And yet, what are we to do about this terribly significant business of other people, which gets bled of the significance we think it has and takes on instead a significance that is ludicrous? So ill equipped are we all to envision one another's interior workings and invisible aims? Is everyone to go off and lock the door and sit secluded like the lonely writers do in a soundproof cell, summoning people out of words and then proposing that these words people are closer to the real thing than the real people that we mangled with our ignorance every day? The fact remains that getting people right is not what living is all about anyway. It's getting them wrong that is living. Getting them wrong and wrong and wrong, and then, on careful reconsideration, getting them wrong again. That's how we know we're alive. We're wrong. Maybe the best thing would be to forget being right or wrong about people and just go along for the ride.
Wow. Honestly, I hadn't even watched that clip until after I did that take. That was really good. I had never seen Colin on video, you know. Barely even know him that well. Honestly, this is a new relationship we built, and I'm so glad I had the faith in him and that he reached out to me because that was awesome. Give it up to Colin. Check out his stuff. Thank you a lot, Colin, for sharing that. That got me fired up. That was exactly what I was looking for. Oh man. Okay, tone it down. Calm it down. Okay. Oh, but thanks for watching, guys. Read Philip Roth. You know, read The Human Stain or American Pastor. Or honestly, okay, I'll show you. I'll show you the other one I got. If you're a mad lad, you know, you just want to jump straight into the abyss, read Sabbath Theater. He won the National Book Award winner. That's what he won the National Book Award for. All right, peace out, motherfuckers. Here's a little identity magic trick.